Good evening and welcome to the Candidates Forum. My name is Shannon Taylor and I will serve as tonight's moderator. This forum is sponsored by the Delta County League of Women Voters and the American Association of University Women. Tonight's forum will be in two segments. The first segment is for the Gladstone City Commission. There are 3 candidates for 2 seats. The term is for 4 years. However, only one candidate agreed to participate. League of Women Voters policy allows for empty chair forums under certain circumstances. Local election forums are permitted to go forward even if only one candidate appears. The second segment will cover the candidates for the Escanaba City Council. There are 3 candidates for 2 seats. The term is also for 4 years. I will now introduce the candidate for the Gladstone City Commission and explain the specific rules of the forum. We welcome the candidate and thank you for participating. The candidate will make a 1-minute opening statement followed by responses to audience questions. The responses are also 1 minute. It will be a rotating response order. The candidate will be given 1 minute to respond to each of the questions asked. A beep will sound when the 60 seconds are up, and the timer will also hold up a red card when your time has elapsed. Please refer to the timer in the front row. Then the candidate will then go on to answer the next question. The forum will end with the candidate giving a 1-minute closing statement. During this forum, candidates are asked to respond only to the questions asked by the moderator. Please be respectful of other candidates. However, candidates are free to address any appropriate issue during opening and closing remarks. Audience members are free to submit as many questions as they would like. As many questions as time permits will be read and answered. The candidates for the Gladstone City Commission are Judy Akala, Brian Godfrey, and Brad Mantala, who is present tonight. Candidate Akala and candidate Godfrey could not be here. Now, if our candidates have no questions, we will proceed with opening statements. Candidate Brad Mantala, welcome. You have the floor for 1 minute beginning now.
Thank you to the League of Women Voters, and thank you to the citizens in attendance and those watching and who will be watching. I'm seeking a third term on the Gladstone City Commission, and the big question that people always ask, why do you want to do that? I really believe that Gladstone has found itself on a good forward path. We were one of the handful of UP communities to gain population in the last census. We now have over 5,200 citizens in Gladstone. We've made great strides in balancing budgets, getting infrastructure projects off the ground, hiring staff, and moving forward with a challenging economic environment and seeing improvements in the quality of life and the overall infrastructure in Gladstone. There's a great team in place in Gladstone. We have, thank you.
Thank you. That concludes opening statements. We will now proceed with questions submitted from the audience. Candidate Mantala, if elected, what would be your top 3 priorities for the city of Gladstone?
My top 3 priorities are what we've been working on, and that's one of the reasons I'm looking to continue that. One is to continue the emphasis on making the city appealing to housing development. We have the North Shore development and Braves Avenue, which under current looking at current development for residential housing, which is in great demand. Continue to improve our infrastructure. We've had great projects with the 9th Street project, the water treatment plant, which is going very well, and finding new ways to fund public safety and Department of Public Works projects that come out of general fund tax revenue. Those are challenges, and we've been meeting those, and we are on the way to making those better for the future, and we want to continue. I want to continue on the team doing that.
Thank you. What are your ideas regarding the North Shore development or other economic development in the city of Gladstone?
The North Shore and Gladstone, a couple years ago, the DDA, in conjunction with the city, purchased a large portion of property on the North Shore from a private entity, a private property owner, and for the look at using that as a development for residential and mixed-use development. That is currently happening. We have interest from a very serious developer, and we've been talking with them since last fall. with mixed-use development, we're looking at small business type entities, and then also different housing layouts, apartments, condominiums, and single-family homes. The city owns about 36 acres on the North Shore, and it's a beautiful piece of property. And just in the short time that the DDA and the city have been working together to acquire that, it's moved ahead very nicely. COVID kind of put a little bit of a damper on that, but it's moving forward.
Thank you. What are your ideas to resolve the current lack of available and affordable housing in the city?
The way we're approaching it is looking at all available city properties that we could sell and develop for private development. The city can't build any houses. So we have to make sure that the leadership team and the infrastructure, and when a developer comes to us, how we work together with them. And one of the biggest things a developer looks for is solid decision-making, consistent decision-making, and knowing that the city is going to be a partner with them in doing what we need to do to lay out the building blocks so they can be successful in their project. So we have the North Shore and Braves Avenue, and when we get those housing developments in the works, that'll kind of, the market should hopefully level itself out, and people will find different levels of housing availability and affordability.
Thank you. What are your ideas for resolving issues regarding the Irish Oaks Caddyshack property?
That is something we've been working on for quite some time. The city had went into a long-term agreement with a private owner to run that city property. We've just recently legally resolved some of that. There's still a few steps to work through in that, but it is, I'd say, about 90% done. What we want to do, what we've discussed, is that we want to have some community input and have some meetings to see what the citizens want to do with that property now. An entire 18-hole golf course that the city owns as park property. We can't just use that because it's park property. It would have to go to a vote of the citizens on what would be utilized on that property other than park. So we're going to seek the citizens' input on that moving forward in the future and see what we can do for the best use and for the citizens of Gladstone.
What are your ideas for improving high-speed internet access for Gladstone residents?
We have been looking at that, and one of the challenges that we discussed with the staff and the city manager was that some of the high-speed internet you're seeing was laid out with the federal money. And some of that isn't necessarily coming into residential areas. I know in Escanaba some of that has, and in some different parts of Gladstone it has. We've had requests, can I get it in town? Can I get it here? The city has no say in that. So what we can do is be open to any partnerships as far as line lease agreements, easements, things like that, when a company has the availability and the funds to do it. With a lot of the fiber that's been coming in, that's been federal money. We can't say, oh, we'd love you to run it down this street. We'd love them to run it down every street. They'll say, we'll do it, but you have to pay for it. And the cost is pretty prohibitive for the city to get into doing that. So we are always looking to partner when monies are available.
Thank you. Are there any significant crime or law enforcement issues in the city? How should the city address them?
The biggest issue with law enforcement that the city of Gladstone is facing, and we're not alone in this, is finding qualified people and retaining them. We've looked at some training programs, sponsoring some people, and of course the benefit package and the pay compensation is always has a consideration to candidates. So we need to work on how we can balance that with a pay and a quality of life. Gladstone's a very safe community, and our public safety does a great job keeping it that way. And we want to get more people in there to do that and take some of the stress off the current staff.
Thank you. How would you address a significant budget deficit?
One of the ways the city of Gladstone doesn't have a budget deficit. Like most places, we are by charter, we have to have a balanced budget. We've come in great strides in the last several years of balancing out where the funds are going from the general fund and the enterprise funds. And one way we're looking at is opportunities to bring money into the general fund. That's streets, public works, and our public safety, which is also, as most people know, public safety is police and fire, so the dual role there. Those are the biggest challenges as far as funding, and we're looking at ways to get more money into that general fund and how we can move forward with the MERS, the retirement funding liability that the city has and most communities have, and how we can fund that and get over a big hump that's coming up in the next 3 years, and then things will be really looking good.
Thank you. How do you propose to bring more revenue into the city besides raising taxes or utility rates?
Well, utility rates and taxes are kind of two different things. So your utilities are a use fund, so that is based on rate studies and what we have to charge to keep the infrastructure up, and then usage for water, electric, tipping fees at the landfill for trash collection. General fund things are the streets, DPW, street plowing, maintenance, things like that, and public safety. There are two ways you can do that. One is raise taxes. Another way is a special assessment like we have been doing for street repair, street replacement, the 9th Street project, and some of the other street projects. You can always look at grant funding and things like that, but those we can look at for one-time projects. But when you do put something in or build something new, you have to look at the legacy costs of maintaining that new asset or that newly repaired asset so it doesn't fall into disrepair. So grants are great, but they're not into the future.
Thank you. Has the city considered any rent control regulations to help citizens afford housing?
Not that I'm aware of, and I'm not aware of what we could do to do that as far as on a legal basis, what the state would allow or what the city ordinance would allow. The biggest thing we want to focus on is getting the volume of available housing up, and we're doing that by promoting the development, like I said, on the North Shore and on Braves Avenue. And when a lot of people, I get approached, a lot of people want to move from their single-family homes, maybe some folks that are empty nesters now or retired. They want to move out of their house with a yard and maintenance and things like that and maybe move into a smaller apartment. When we open up availability for units like that, a single-family home becomes available and is attractive to somebody who wants a yard and place for the kids and the pets. And so by doing that, we think the market will kind of even itself out and people will find the housing that they're looking for. And by providing more supply, prices come down.
Thank you. This next question comes from a Bay student. I don't know anything about a proposed homeless shelter in Gladstone, but I think that it is needed. I think that our local leaders need to have a better plan to handle the amount of displaced individuals that our communities have. It is a sad situation, but one that I think they could at least attempt to resolve. The lack of affordable housing here, and quite frankly everywhere, is absolutely absurd, and something needs to be done. Maybe that something needs to start at the local level, so the more local governments can see the change and decide to also make the change, so maybe this national housing crisis can come to an end. I'm intrigued to learn more about what our local governments plan to do to help these citizens out and what this proposed homeless shelter may look like and what are they going to try to accomplish with it.
Well, what the city could do is within any zoning ordinances or state laws or what's available to us legally, any private groups that come in and might want to start a shelter, start a multifamily unit or something like that, we will work with them within all availability of what we can do to provide the platform for them to do that. The city is not in the business of building housing. The Gladstone Housing Commission is a separate entity. Some people might get confused with that, but that's a completely separate business entity. The city doesn't administer that. There's a separate board for that. It's actually owned by a company that runs it, and they control the rents and things like that there. We do have agreements to keep utilities down and like trash and electric rates and water rates. So they do get a kind of a deal on that. But, you know, we can work with any groups would that come in.
Thank you. Are there local changes needed to the local marijuana ordinances? If so, please explain.
We are not looking at changing anything right now. We are an opt-out city, and we're not looking at changing anything in that aspect.
Thank you. Is there a better way to funding street projects that is equitable?
We get this question a lot, and right now, the way we have been doing it is with special assessments as well as the funds available to from the different departments. So if we're doing a water project, the water that they can pay for a portion of the work done for that. But as far as the streets go, we can get grant funding. We can look for like walkability projects and things like that. But the best way to do it, and not everybody likes to hear it, is, and it is equitable, is with a special assessment by linear footage of the road that's being put in and the construction costs. We've done many projects like that over the last several years, and we've been aggressively doing it. And we've actually had some people come in and during the public hearings when we do those special assessments and say, thank you, I love driving down that brand new road, and some are asking, when are you going to do my street?
Thank you. And our final question is, if you got a grant to use for whatever you wanted, what would you use the money for and why?
That would be a magical thing because there is never any grant that they say you can do whatever you want the money with. The grants, everybody likes to get grants, and they are available, and we actively and aggressively seek them out. The problem with them is there's so many strings attached to them for what the project can entail, what it can be. A lot of people talked about the COVID money. There was like 4 things you can only use that for: high-speed internet, water, wastewater, and some street improvements. So the thing about grants too, as I mentioned before, is it's kind of like a one-time shot in the arm. So when you have that money, you can knock out a bigger project, but how do you continue maintaining that new asset or that new street or what you have put in? And you know that you might not get the grant next time. We budget for grants sometimes, and we've missed some, and so you can't always count on them, but they're nice to seek out.
Thank you. We have now come to the final minutes of the candidate forum for the Gladstone City Commission, when the candidate will be given 1 minute to make a closing statement. Candidate Mantala, you may begin.
Once again, thank you for everybody coming tonight. Thank you for the questions. I hope everybody gets a chance to do one of the greatest things that we enjoy in this country, and the freedom is to go out and vote. I hope that you cast a vote for myself, and I'd like to serve one more term here and see some of these things that we've been working on so hard in Gladstone and see them come to fruition and continue on the positive path that we've seen, and continue that on for another term. And I'm hoping that you get out and vote in November. Thank you.
Thank you, candidate Mantala, for participating in our forum this evening. We will take a 5-minute break to set up for the second segment covering the Escanaba City Council. Good evening, and welcome back to the second segment of the Candidates Forum. My name is Shannon Taylor, and I will serve as tonight's moderator. This forum is sponsored by the Delta County League of Women Voters and the American Association of University Women. I will now introduce the candidates for the Escanaba City Council and explain the specific rules of the forum. Welcome and thank you for participating to our candidates. Our candidates will go in alphabetical order. They will make their 1-minute opening statements and respond to questions. This will be a rotating response order. Each candidate will be given 1 minute to respond to each of the questions asked. A beep will sound when your 60 seconds are up, and the timer will also hold up a red card when your time has elapsed. Please refer to the timer in the front row. The forum will end with each candidate giving a 1-minute closing statement. During this forum, candidates are asked to respond only to the questions asked by the moderator. Please be respectful of other candidates. Active debate with other candidates is not allowed. A parliamentarian will be present to ensure rules are followed. You are, however, free to address any appropriate issues during your opening and closing remarks. Audience members are free to submit as many questions as they would like. As many questions as time permits will be read and answered. The candidates for the Escanaba City Council are Tyler Dubord, Karen Moore, and Rhonda Waters. If our candidates have no questions, we will proceed with opening statements. Candidate Dubord, welcome. You have the floor for 1 minute, beginning now.
Thank you for having me and us. It has been a great pleasure serving on City Council for the past 4 years, and I look forward to being reelected for the next 4 years. I really have enjoyed City Council. I believe this council currently is running very smooth and well organized. We have great communication, great honesty, and I'm one of those people that are going to ask those questions, tough questions, at council. And I will continue to do the research I necessarily need to do prior to council so I am ready and prepared for future council meetings for the citizens and for everyone in this community.
Thank you, Candidate Dubord. Candidate Moore, you have the floor for 1 minute.
Thank you. The last 4 years have been fun, interesting, educational, controversial, and very rewarding. I have learned the financial, educational, and time commitments it takes to make things happen. Part of my growth in this position has been the realization that changes in the community require participation by individuals and clear, concise sharing of goals and expectations. It's important to listen to citizens' opinions. That's an expectation of elections. I have worked closely with boards, commissions, and city administration and departments, suggesting ideas and following through to completion. A positive approach to ideas and problem solving is important. We recently had an extended visit and evaluation by 2 urban experts as a perk my nonprofit Enhance Escanaba received from a grant. They love this place and stated they have never been in an area with so many possibilities. I have a checklist of ideas, and of course, so do our citizens. As a city council member, I would like to continue to take advantage of this unique and important position to make things happen.
Thank you, Candidate Moore. Candidate Waters, you have the floor.
Hi, everyone. I know I'm the new person here, so I'm just going to take a second to tell you a little bit about myself. I went to Escanaba High School and then Bay College. I finished my bachelor's degree with Capella University this winter, and I start my doctoral program in the spring. I'm passionate about mental health. I'm trying to become a licensed psychologist. I'm a proud member of the Escanaba City Band, and I currently serve on the Recreation Advisory Board. Together, my husband Brian and I have 5 kids, ages 6 to 25. Our family is extremely important to me. I always want to be a good role model for them. I am running for this seat on the city council because I think it's time for a change, and I want to represent that change. I want to see our city be successful for both my children and yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Candidate Waters. That concludes opening statements. We will now proceed with questions submitted from the audience. Since the opening statement began with Candidate Dubord, we will now move on to Candidate Moore to answer the first audience question. Candidate Moore, if elected, what would be your top 3 priorities for the city?
I think the top priority is housing. It seems to be all over the UP, everywhere, is housing. And I think the way to answer that is to build condos and apartments like Brad was talking about before, because there's lots of of older people that would like to move out of their homes and move into something that's a little bit simpler way of living. And that would open up nice homes for people to move into. I would also like to approach new, or to encourage new industry. We need another industry here. We need some other reason for people to come here besides tourism. And then we do have a serious drug problem, and it's a problem in the UP, not only Escanaba. Public safety is doing a wonderful job trying to curb that, but I think that a lot of
Thank you. Candidate Waters?
My top three priorities in this position would also be housing. I have to agree with you on that. It's an extremely important need right now. Also, I think that our drug problem has a lot to do with the lack of mental health resources in our area. And as I said before, it's something I'm very passionate about. I think we need more mental health resources, and I would hope that we could find a way to possibly encourage that with me being on the council. Another thing would be policing. You know, we need to step up the community involvement with the police, as we are doing, but I think it's a great purpose and a great cause. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Dubord?
Definitely housing. Totally supported that. But I don't want to classify it just housing for the rich or housing for the middle class. There's housing needs for low income too. There needs to be a nice blend association, not just one type over another. There are a lot of single people out here that are low income that are looking for jobs or are currently working. There are single people on low income that don't have children or families and may not want to. But we need to offer availability to all of these type of classes, not one specific. In addition, policing is very important. I do agree. Community policing is very important. Get our police department involved within our community. Be out there for the events. Walk around. Talk with the people. Stop, say hi. Shoot baskets with the kids. Have some fun. That's community policing. That gives you a better support from the community. And I do want to continue to support our infrastructure remodels that are taking place within the city and continuing to push forward to future development within the community.
Thank you. And moving on to our next audience question. This question will be going to Candidate Waters. And Candidate Waters, if you can just pull yourself a little closer to the microphone. Candidate Waters, what is your position on proposed ordinance regarding the ownership of chickens or ducks within the city?
I hadn't thought about that question before. I think that was something that I would prefer to put to a vote for the citizens that live in our town. I don't think the council should necessarily make that choice without an informed vote. You know, how I feel might not be how everybody else feels about it, and et cetera. I wouldn't want to just assume that it's okay without a vote from individuals. And that's my opinion on it.
Thank you. Candidate Dubord?
I'm mixed on this one. I definitely hear from other citizens that their concern is the smell, the noise, the concern with, right now we have a lot of stray cats, so eventually could there be a lot of stray chickens running around the city? Okay, I see pros and cons, and then I have another one where, yes, it provides substance for their family, so it does provide eggs, it can provide meat for families too. So I'm kind of torn in there, and I would continue to do my research and hear out from my citizens before making a decision on that.
Thank you. Candidate Moore?
Our zoning person has come up with a really good ordinance based on lots of research. And it was presented to the Planning Commission. And the Planning Commission, of course, had opinions on it, and it's so controversial that they couldn't make a decision. So they brought up a few things that they want changed or added, and so I would respect the Planning Commission's decision on whatever they decide, because they're going to get a lot of input from citizens around, and I'm kind of neutral on it because I've never had chickens, but, we'll see what the citizens want. I think this is a perfect example of citizen input being very important.
Thank you. Candidate Dubord, What is your position on regulating local Airbnb or vacation rentals or other short-term rentals within the city?
Great question. I know that the Michigan legislation is looking into some type of regulation in regards to Airbnbs. I am for free market. So, citizens that own their homes and choose to do rentals out of there, you can do that. That's nothing against me. But I look at the big picture and say we do need housing as well. So there's got to be a happy balance there, a medium there. And we're not quite sure how to do that without taking away the rights of the citizens, but also freeing up that there's places for people to rent or purchase. So that's a mixed one.
Thank you. Candidate Moore?
Well, this is kind of personal to me because I have 2 Airbnbs, and it's been a wonderful experience. I have had people from all over the world stay, and so they love this place. So this has been a great opportunity for me and for Escanaba because they like coming here. But I know that a lot of people from out of town have been buying up property and turning them into Airbnbs and then paying professionals here to take care of them. And I know that some cities in Michigan have decided that no Airbnbs are to be owned by people from out of the city. Now, whether or not that would work here or not, but that's an alternative that could be explored if it gets to the point where we really need to do something and there's lots of complaints.
Thank you. Candidate Waters?
Sorry. You both bring up great points. If we allow Airbnbs, it also brings up the question of, well, but we need housing, right? And it could hinder that need. And then I love the point you just brought up about, possibly making it so that no out-of-town residents could own them. That does seem fair for the city. So I guess when it comes to this issue, I would have to do my research before I made an informed decision.
Thank you. And our next question goes to Candidate Moore. What is your position on the potential expansion of city sewer service into Wells Township or other areas?
I think that in Wells' instance, it's a great idea because Wells has a problem with wells and they all have septic tanks. And there's problems with both of those things. And Escanaba has the capability to expand into wells. It would be advantageous for new development. Everybody wouldn't have to hook up to it, but new business would look at it as this community is forward-thinking and there's the interest there and the structure is there for new business. And then that would open themselves up to grants because grants people that give out grants look for progressive cities that are doing things that in anticipation of building and industry coming. And that's what I think it would show.
Thank you. Candidate Waters?
I think it's very interesting, maybe to put off a couple of years into the future, because I believe right now we have a lot of public works projects going on, and I think they should take a priority. The lead pipes and the waste pipes. I forget exactly what you guys call them. And the roads, we have a lot going on with our roads right now, so that does seem like an idea to discuss at a later time.
Thank you. Candidate Dubord?
I think it's a great idea. I think we should continue to expand as much as we can for our other communities. If we have the ability within Escanaba to provide clean water and wastewater to these communities, to give them a resource that is currently not there, we are providing a great thing for them, plus for future development. There are opportunities for businesses along that highway that can't get running wastewater out there, that are looking to expand once they get it. So future growth is available once we open up the doors to allow water lines going in. Of course, it comes as a cost. Well, who's going to suffer the cost? Well, that's got to be a shared cost or find more money or grant money that we could find to expand this opportunity for Wells Water to continue to grow.
Thank you. Candidate Waters, are you in favor or opposed to the potential termination of the Michigan Municipal Employees Retirement System pension plan in order to implement an alternative plan?
You know, I'm just going to be honest, that's not something I've had time to research. I'm very interested in it, and I would definitely like to read more and get the advice of the standing council members, because I'm sure that they have strong opinions on this already. That's not something I've had time to research.
Thank you. Candidate Dubord.
I think we are looking for an alternative, as we've had a meeting with MERS already. And I think this is a good opportunity to give the true transparencies to those employees that have been invested into their pension plan. The current MERS plan does not give true transparency to the employees that have the pension. In addition, we have a very large unfunded balance with MERS. With us going to privatizing and us controlling it as a city gives us a more open transparency to everyone, and also in addition, more of an idea of securing the investments that take place.
Thank you. Candidate Moore.
We already have a very successful private public employees retirement fund through public safety. And it's being managed locally, and it's doing a lot better than MERS. Plus, we have a very talented financial genius in our midst, our city manager, and he is the one that started us on the path to going to a privatization. And through his PowerPoint, there was no doubt that it was a good decision based on performance mostly, but being able to see exactly what's going on with our money.
Thank you. Candidate Dubord. What are you going to do about our local housing crisis? I know that it is a national problem, but I think that locally there is so much that could be done to change it. Is there going to be a permanent homeless shelter placed in either Gladstone or Escanaba?
Housing crisis, like we've talked about, is the issue. Previous councils have turned down housing development. Maybe it's time we need to contact those developers to bring back to look at future development for maybe the lower mid-class citizens. Homeless shelter brought up was previous. I brought that up too previously on previous councils about a warming center to a homeless shelter permanently within the city. We do have public buildings that, why aren't we utilizing them if they're not being utilized? I just don't feel like the burden should fall on just local churches. I think it's a community effort. And if we can, as a city, help with that in any way or form, I'm more open to it and willing to keep my ears open.
Thank you. Candidate Moore.
A major part of our population is over 55. Some of these retired people would like smaller homes with less maintenance. Condos and apartments are a choice for many. Their homes would become available to families. There are many families living in low-income housing that are able to afford homes of their own. This would open up availability for our existing low-income apartments. We need to encourage and seek out developers for these types of condos and apartments to start the process. City administration has been providing incentives for housing developers. And as far as the homeless issue, I don't think that government should be in the homeless shelter business. I think that government can encourage these things and with private groups through incentives or zoning or whatever, but I think that they should be a support. The government should support these issues, but private organizations should.
Thank you. Candidate Waters.
So I happen to know that we do have a church-run homeless unit right now in our city that does have some open beds.
Thank you. Candidate Moore, can the city regulate what is charged for rent? Can something be done, as this is not the kind of area where $1,200 for an apartment is okay? There is not enough industry here to make that livable. They have to be able to do something as city council and city commission to make changes to make life more livable for their residents.
Well, that's an interesting question. I don't think the city would ever be in the business of controlling rents. Rents are controlled by availability, and, it's sad that sometimes when there's low availability that the rents go up. So to remedy that, if you will, the best thing would be to encourage more housing, because if there's more available housing, more opportunities, more choices for people, then the rents go down.
Thank you. Candidate Waters?
I agree that $1,200 a month is a hard price to pay for rent. Not everybody has the means to afford that. I had a meeting with our city manager, Mr. McNeil, and he informed me that our median income is around $36,000 in our city. So it's simple math, that's just too much to pay for rent. And I do think that when we look at housing and developing, we need to think about that number alone. The statistics don't lie. If we're not thinking about around half of our citizens that make less than $36,000, then we're not helping them afford, when it comes to affordable housing. So we need to keep those numbers in mind.
Thank you. Candidate Dubord?
Supply and demand. When there's not enough supply, the demand gets higher, rates go up. We're also in an inflationary market right now too. We've been like that for, a couple of years now. Things cost more. Cost of living's gone up. People that own these rentals have to pay for them. They have to maintain them. They have to raise their rates, and rent has to go up. Talk about our median income. Wow, how many of those citizens over 58 are in the median income or lower? Do we ever consider that, or do we think everyone over the age of 58 is rich and has a lot of money to get condos and many other things? Consider those that are looking for individual housings that may not have another spouse. Those are the people that need that lower income home that can be in a livable, comfortable place to live at affordable rates. So we need to consider not just the young, but we need to consider the older too. So I think housing is very important.
Thank you. Candidate Waters, are changes needed to our municipal marijuana ordinances? If so, please explain.
I support the marijuana ordinance as it stands, and if I was here on this council to vote, I would have supported the city's majority. That's it.
Thank you. Candidate Dubord?
Back with our discussions on the marijuana dispensaries a while back, the fear of everyone was doom and gloom, and 15, 20 dispensaries were coming into Escanaba. Well, they didn't, did they? Currently, we have 7 licensed dispensaries within the community. I'm not seeing long lines out the doors every day waiting to get in there. I'm not hearing of major issues or problems within those areas. Some of them even had those buildings look pretty nice right now and redid them. So really, I'm in still support of what I voted on and will continue to support that.
Thank you. Candidate Moore?
When Michigan put legalization of marijuana on the ballot years ago, it only passed in Escanaba by 1.5%, not a clear majority. I wanted to let the people decide by putting the dispensary issue on the ballot last fall. Let the voters decide. That didn't happen. 3 council members should not make a decision on such a controversial subject. Our city attorney suggested 2 ways to approach the dispensary issue: either limit the number of dispensaries or allow unlimited numbers and restrict the zones. I was in favor of following her recommendations. Neither of these suggestions were followed. Only 20% of municipalities in Michigan have allowed dispensaries. There is a reason for that. We now have 7 approved licenses in Escanaba. Will they all survive? Probably not. I don't think our city needs 7 dispensary locations with very few restrictions. Will the revenue be an asset, or will added problems be a liability? That remains to be seen.
Thank you. Candidate Dubord, How will you role model civility, open-mindedness, and critical thinking skills as a community leader?
To this day, anyone can call me. Anyone can email me. I usually call you back or email you back as soon as I get a response. I'm always willing to hear you out, always willing to meet with you, and I always hear both sides. And I do my research, and I come to the best conclusion that I can make when I have to place my vote on council. I'm out there in the community. Stop me anytime. I'm always available. People stop me to this day in the grocery store. That's fine. I'm available. I'm a public servant. You want to come talk to me at my children's events? That's fine. I'll make time for you too. But being out there in the community is important. Being a visionary, being at fundraisers, sponsorships, local organizations, shows that you are involved in the community as a public leader. And I should be present at a lot of those. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Moore?
I think it's important to listen to people. Not only when they come to meetings like this to listen to opinions, but I mean, even if you have a contradictory opinion, I think it's important to listen to what people want. And then I hear all the time, why don't we do this? Or why don't we do that? Or how about how about this or how about that? And I welcome people to come to any council member with an idea. And if they have an idea, then bring with it how to implement it and, of course, how to fund it. And those are the things that we need. And from hearing from people are ideas. And most people don't realize that. They want something that is in another locality, another city. They want something, why can't we have that? So-and-so has this. And we can. But, we can't do it all, but we certainly can listen to every idea.
Thank you. Candidate Waters?
Critical thinking skills have been one task that I've been forced to constantly enhance and master in my education. The biggest support in that is knowing how to research topics that I have no idea about. I've learned through school, honestly, how to find primary resources, do secondary research, and statistics mean a lot to me. The numbers don't lie, and if you can look at the numbers, look at the research, take your time before you make an informed vote, I think that's how I can show you guys that I'm a critical thinker. Also, working where I do, I'm a bartender. I'm not ashamed to say it. I hear from everybody about everything and every opinion, and it gets heated. And I've heard all the opinions, and I will continue to hear all the opinions because it really does fascinate me and it inspires me.
Thank you. Candidate Moore? What could be done by council to ensure efficient completion of infrastructure projects that are impacting roads, streets, and sidewalks throughout the city?
Because of the city's due diligence, especially the water department, we have received $60 million worth of grants in the last year to fix our infrastructure, water and sewer. And when the streets are torn up to do that, then the streets will be repaired or remodeled or whatever, or beautified. And I think that that's the way you start. And it was because that we projected the idea to the state that we're in compliance with regulations that came out, and that made us more receptive or open, or grants were available to us. So I think that we have a huge start right now. I mean, a huge start for fixing our infrastructure.
Thank you. Candidate Waters?
Efficient completion of any project takes educated oversight. I would hope that the city would simply stay on top of these tasks, stay in touch with the project managers, and make sure they have the support that they need. And hopefully, with their expertise, they can foresee any future challenges and get ahead of them. That's the only way you really can be efficient in any task, though. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Dubord?
I agree. City Council has done great jobs the city council, the department heads and city manager allocating $60 million in grant money for infrastructure is a huge success. Money's always going to be a big factor in this. Infrastructure is key, especially now with the requirements of lead line replacements from the Clean Water Act that we have to do. In addition, a lot of the enhancements to our water treatment plant based off Eagle, advising us that the old equipment that we have needs to be updated and upgraded to provide cleaner water. That costs money. So we are doing everything. And with the lead line replacements, we're trying to work hand in hand with Public Works and the water and with the water plant. So when we have to do lead line replacements and we're tearing up the road, we can get to them and then put new road down. We don't want to put new road down and then tear it back up to get lead line replacements in there. That'd be illogical. It doesn't make sense to waste more money. So we are continuing to do that.
Thank you. Candidate Waters, what are the most significant crime or law enforcement issues in the city? How should the city address these?
I think the most significant issue is so significant that any minor issues don't even need to be spoken about as far as this council is concerned right now. The biggest issue is the drug use. And, you know, the city council continues to support UPSET, continues to support public safety, and that's awesome. But I also do think, again, you know, what about prevention? Once these kids or younger people, or I guess I shouldn't just refer to them as kids, but once these people, you know, have become addicted, what are their resources after they get out of jail, after they're not in trouble anymore? We need mental health resources in our community, and that includes drug recovery. We need to be on top of it in as many ways as we can be, and that's not just in the police force or with UPSET. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Dubord?
Thank you for having a school resource officer in our schools. That's a great addition, first of all, to have an officer present within our children that are at school. Drugs are an issue, yes, they are. And I do agree that our police officers are doing what we can with the resources we have. Working with UPSET is a great addition to have UPSET here to work with the other local law enforcement agencies to take care of as much removal of drugs or labs within our communities. I still strongly believe in community policing. This is where our police officers build trust with our citizens and teens and students out there in the community. Once they get to know you, they build the trust just as much as you get to know them, you build the trust. That means more honesty comes from each other. More things are found out, more things that are resources or helpful areas that the police can assist with. So I do strongly continue to support community policing, and I think that's a great step for our police department to move forward on.
Thank you. Candidate Moore?
Illicit drug use is the major crime and law enforcement issue in Escanaba. Unemployment, thefts, family issues, homelessness, and vandalism are only a few of the ramifications, with a large percentage being from drug abuse and addictions. Public safety is constantly and diligently working on this problem, but it seems when one avenue is contained, another surfaces. Our local law enforcement organizations have developed programs and are working on ways to deal with the problems. When the family structure is broken, it is difficult to get compliance and cooperation. I think it has to start with support from private groups, churches, counselors, and service organizations, and of course, more mental health resources.
Thank you. Candidate Dubord, what are your ideas, if any, for additional city enhancement or beautification projects?
I think we need to continue to work with the DDA, continue to work with a great resource between City Council and the DDA district. I believe we can look at other opportunities for maybe some incentives that we could work together on to provide to local businesses downtown to do more enhancements downtown. I believe the DDA did just receive a grant for $330,000 in some programs that we're going to do downtown as well. So I continue to ask that we all chip in to do that. I mean, as citizens, we can always do enhancements to our yards, enhancements to the corners, enhancements to the boulevards. Any little thing we do makes it more beautiful downtown or anywhere we live. So continue to support those.
Thank you. Candidate Moore?
It's a proven fact with lots of research to back it that if you beautify your downtown, people come and there's increased sales. And that's what we're trying to do. And we started with trees and flowers, and I think it's made a huge difference. And then, like Mr. Dubord said, we just got a big grant, and that is going to be to build a new restroom across from the municipal dock and to beautify the city, or Ludington Street from the municipal dock probably to Fifth Street, maybe Sixth Street, depending on how far the money goes and depending on what we decide to do. So those things are all helpful. But I think that the main issue is if you make the downtown a place that people want to come to, not only customers, but businesses, then they will come.
Thank you. Candidate Waters?
I agree that Main Street is really our focal point when it comes to beautifying Escanaba. It's like the curb appeal of your house. We want it to look as nice as possible. Not only, for our own personal pride, but like you said, more businesses will come and be interested in growing here and establishing here. I do think that as a council, we can just continue to support the DDA and enhance Escanaba in all personal attempts to make the city more beautiful.
Thank you. Candidate Moore, what are your ideas for additional lakeshore development or other development in the city?
There are many exciting things happening in Escanaba that will start becoming visible shortly. We had limited lakeshore land available for development, and with the sale of this prime city property, major developers are in the process of building a hotel and condos. Major retailers have taken an interest in Escanaba. They believe in us. City administration is providing incentives, so developers will find our city a great place to do business.
Thank you. Candidate Waters?
I think it's a matter of prioritizing incentives for developers. We need businesses to want to not just come here, but also feel like they'll be supported in the long run by our council, to know that we work as an efficient team and that they have our continued support. I think there's ways we can do that, with tax incentives and building incentives and, possibly looking at grants to help them fund their projects. So as long as we come to the table open-minded, I think we can continue to build that.
Thank you. Candidate Dubord?
It's true. Big, exciting things are happening downtown, especially to the end of Ludington, with the development of condos, a new hotel, North Shore Marine's deep port expansion, the House of Ludington reopening up. There are so many things now developing down at that end that the draw is going to be bigger than we can expect. People are going to be coming to that end, which now opens up the doors to other empty buildings and buildings from 8th Street down that are being purchased. And future development's going to be taking place. I do agree that we need to offer an incentive. And I think working with the city manager and other things like the DDA, we can maybe look at development incentives to bring people downtown to continue to grow. We have huge opportunity here. It's time we're not so stagnant and we continue to grow progressively for the future. And we're doing that now and we will continue.
Thank you. Candidate Waters, what infrastructure issues is the city facing?
This is probably a better question for these two here that have been on this council and have been facing these issues for the last 4 years, but I can only guess it is taking care of the buildings that we have. We've got historical buildings that need work, and a lot of them remain empty. The ones that we have, the people who own them, they need support from the council, from the city, in order to beautify them. A good example, besides the House of Ludington, would be the Delft and the Michigan theaters. What we're doing is working for them, and that's awesome, and we should continue to support our incoming purchasers so that when they do take on these huge projects, they have our support.
Thank you. Candidate Dubord?
The infrastructure pieces and downtown buildings, I think there's a lot of pieces here. First of all, some of the owners of these buildings don't live here. They haven't done anything with these buildings. They're letting them rot, empty, falling apart. And we have to start really doing code enforcement to either get them moving on these buildings sitting there that could be utilized or sold or developed. That's a number one priority. Second of all, those that do have maybe a little bit more infrastructure needs downtown that need help, let's look at the MEDC. Let's look at resources that are available to get them some grant funding or monies, or what can we do as a community to help enhance them with infrastructure downtown. So these are a lot of things that I think brainstorming and working as a team and as a community, and council will support this and look at other ideas that we can come up with to help everyone in the infrastructure side of it.
Thank you. Candidate Moore?
Well, infrastructure is not only buildings, but it's underground. And we have some issues with our sewer and our drains, stormwater drains and clean water. And that is, like I referenced before, we have $60 million and they're going to start. Next spring, we're going to start on the east side at the water plant and go west as far as the money takes us. And that's going to be a huge thing. And then at the same time, the street will be redesigned while we have the street dug up. So that's going to start the process of revitalizing the downtown. And like I said before, if we make the downtown beautiful, then we're going to attract businesses, and businesses will buy older buildings and fix them up. And we can also provide a fund or
Thank you. Candidate Dubord, what can be done about high water rates?
The number one question, what can be done with the high water rates? At this point, we're not lowering them. We are kind of getting where we need to be in an average comparison compared to other communities. For many, many years, the rates in the water were never raised or increased bit by bit. And so what happens when we need the funding available for the infrastructure that needs to be done, we had to bump up our rates to have the funds available to do the projects needed for the infrastructure. Right now, we are averaging out to where we need to be compared to other communities. Down the road, hopefully with the continued to have the grant money that we can receive and the monies that we can receive, we will taper off and keep you at a set level or a slow increment level increases that go through every year.
Thank you. Candidate Moore?
Escanaba's water rates are pretty much in the middle of the list of UP cities. Does that make it any easier to accept increases? No. The state mandate for lead service line replacements influenced our water rates. Administration devised a plan to comply with these mandates, with increased rates being a part of the plan out of necessity. Because our administration was conscientious about this, we applied and are receiving tens of millions of dollars in grants for water and wastewater improvements. We would never have been on the top of the list for these grants without a clear plan for compliance. Our water wastewater superintendent, along with our city manager, deserve all the credit for procuring these grants.
Thank you. Candidate Waters?
All I can say is I come from a two-person working class household, and my water bill is high too. I can relate. And I know that we are, we've had mandatory improvements that we have to do. However, what's the point of clean water if we can't afford it, right? We have to find a balance. We have to look for ways to offset this cost, whether it's in the utility bill alone or in other ways in our community, help our citizens save some money, because it's a high cost of living all the way around. And we all know it. So we just need to work on fixing it if we can.
Thank you. We have now come to the final minutes of the candidate forum for the Escanaba City Council. Candidates will be given 1 minute to make a closing statement. Candidate Moore, you may begin.
I have enjoyed the last 4 years working on the council and would like to continue the work I am doing. I think it's important to be a proactive council person with meetings not the primary duty. There are so many exciting things happening in our city, and I would like to continue to be part of the council to help facilitate and support. I feel housing is the number one priority. We need condos and apartments for middle-income families that would provide more simple living situations. This would open up many nice homes for young families. Attracting industry is another important goal, and adequate housing supports this. Fixing our roads and infrastructure is a priority for any of these things to happen. I have developed a wonderful working relationship with city administration. I am plugged in and tuned into the many workings of our city. I have been an intricate part of many exciting things going on in Escanaba. I have a hands-on approach to city government. I'm confident I have offered a common sense and fair approach involving important decisions.
Thank you. Candidate Waters, you may begin.
I just want to say thank you to the League of Women Voters for this opportunity to share my ideas and opinions. And to the voters, I sincerely appreciate your consideration to vote for me. I'm excited to help our city, and I'm looking forward to Election Day. Whether I make it on this council or not, I have a lot of respect for both of these two. And I'm proud of myself for pushing myself this far to even try. It hasn't been easy. It's been very scary, actually. So being elected to this council will be a very high compliment for me personally, from my community, and that means a lot to me. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Dubord, you may begin.
I have passion. I believe in what we're doing. I believe in what I've done for the past 4 years. And I hate to lose that passion by leaving council. So that's why I chose to run again for another 4 years, hopefully. I believe in what we're doing. My children are part of this community. I grew up in this community, and I want to continue to see it grow. And we're seeing it. And down the road, my children will see it continue to grow more and more and more. And I will continue to give my all, dedicate more time than I have, but I will continue to do that because this is what I believe in. And I continue to be a resource for anybody in the community to call me, email me, stop me, talk to me. I'm always willing to listen. I'm always willing to talk. I'm always there to listen to ideas, like Karen has said before. She is too. We're always willing to hear you. Don't be afraid. And I believe in what I'm doing is the right thing. Thank you for your support.
Thank you. Each of our candidates has now made their closing remarks. Thank you once again for participating in our forum this evening. The League of Women Voters has also provided an online voters guide, which can be found at vote411.org. Vote411.org is a one-stop shop for election-related information. It provides nonpartisan information to the public. It is already available. A recording of tonight's forum will be available on the Delta County League of Women Voters webpage, lwvdeltacounty.org. In addition to the candidates we heard from tonight, there is a Gladstone bonding proposal. The candidates' responses to questions and the proposal language can be found on vote411.org. We hope that the audience has found this evening informative and helpful in determining for whom they will vote. Please make your voice heard by voting in the Tuesday, November 7th election. The polls will be open from 7 a.m. until 8 p.m. For those unable to be present at the polls on Tuesday, November 7th, absentee ballots may be picked up at your city clerk's office in City Hall. Please call them for more information. Absentee voters are encouraged to return their ballots as soon as possible, but every ballot will be counted if received by 8 p.m. on November 7th. If you need additional election information, call your city clerk's office. Please note that due to recent court rulings, you will also need to present a picture ID when voting or fill out an affidavit stating that you do not have a picture ID. We would like to thank the City of Escanaba for the use of council chambers and broadcasting the program, and thank you to our local media for publicizing tonight's forum, and a special thanks to our audience for your participation. Before ending tonight, we of the Delta County League of Women Voters would also like to remind our viewers that if you find our forums informative and you believe that voter participation is not a spectator sport, We urge you to join us. We are always open to new members. Any interested man or woman can contact us at lwvdeltacounty@yahoo.com. For the American Association of University Women and the Delta County League of Women Voters who sponsored this evening's forum, I'm Shannon Taylor. Thank you and good night.